Imagine a world where the bedrock of European security for over 70 years suddenly vanishes. What happens when the United States, the military giant of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, decides to pack its bags and leave? This isn't just a political headline. It's the beginning of what many would call Europe's worst nightmare. Let's explore the seismic shifts that would rock the continent if America withdrew from NATO. First, let's talk about the immediate aftermath. The very day the U.S. withdrawal becomes official, a wave of uncertainty would sweep across global markets. The euro would likely plummet against other world currencies as investor confidence in the continent's stability evaporates. Stock markets from London to Warsaw would see a massive sell-off. Why? Because for decades, the American security guarantee has been the invisible hand stabilizing European economies. Without it, the risk premium for investing in Europe would skyrocket. Then comes the military scramble. European nations would be forced into a frantic, high-stakes discussion. Who fills the void left by the United States? The U.S. currently accounts for roughly 2/3 of NATO's combined defense spending. No single European nation, not even France or Germany, can bridge that gap overnight. This would trigger an immediate and costly arms race across the continent. Countries would have to divert massive portions of their national budgets from social programs, healthcare, and infrastructure directly into defense. Imagine your taxes going up, not for better schools or hospitals, but for tanks and fighter jets. The strategic map of Europe would be redrawn instantly. Countries bordering Russia, like Poland and the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, would feel the most vulnerable. For them, NATO's Article 5, the principle that an attack on one is an attack on all, was their ultimate insurance policy, backed primarily by American might. Without the U.S., the credibility of this collective defense pact is severely weakened. Would Germany or Italy really risk a major war with Russia to defend a small Baltic state? The answer becomes frighteningly uncertain. This uncertainty would create deep divisions within Europe itself. Two camps would likely form. One, led by France, would advocate for a strategic autonomy model, a truly independent European army. They've been pushing this idea for years, but now it would become a desperate necessity. The other camp, perhaps led by Eastern European nations, would be more skeptical. They might seek to form smaller, regional defense alliances or even try to create new bilateral security pacts with the United States outside of NATO, creating a patchwork of competing security interests. This would fragment European unity, making the continent weaker, not stronger. Russia, watching from the sidelines, would see a golden opportunity. A fractured and militarily weaker Europe is exactly what they've wanted for decades. We wouldn't necessarily see an immediate, large-scale invasion. Instead, Russia would likely use a more insidious strategy. Think increased cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure like power grids and financial systems. Think political interference, funding extremist parties to sow chaos and division within European nations. They could ramp up pressure on non-NATO countries like Moldova or Georgia. They might even test the resolve of the new US-less alliance by orchestrating a minor border incident in the Baltics just to see how Europe reacts. Without the powerful American deterrent, Putin's Russia would be emboldened to act far more aggressively to reassert its sphere of influence. The power dynamics within Europe would also change dramatically. Germany, as the continent's economic powerhouse, would be under immense pressure to become its military leader as well. This is a role Germany has been deeply reluctant to take on since World War II for historical reasons. A remilitarized Germany could reawaken old fears and tensions among its neighbors, further complicating European unity. France, with its nuclear arsenal and expeditionary military, would also vie for leadership, potentially creating a Franco-German rivalry that could paralyze decision-making at a critical time. And what about the UK? Post-Brexit, it's already on the outside of the European Union, without NATO as the primary bridge. Its security relationship with the continent would become even more complicated. It would likely align even more closely with the US in any new arrangements, pulling it further away from its European neighbors. The very fabric of the Western alliance would be torn apart. The nightmare extends beyond conventional warfare. The U.S. provides crucial intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities that European nations rely on. Everything from satellite imagery to signals intelligence would be severely diminished. This would hamper Europe's ability to respond to terrorist threats, monitor rogue states, and manage refugee crises. The continent would essentially be flying blind in an increasingly dangerous world. Nuclear deterrence would also become a terrifyingly complex issue. The U.S. nuclear umbrella has protected non-nuclear NATO members for decades. Without it, countries like Germany, Poland, or even Italy might feel compelled to develop their own nuclear weapons for self-preservation. A wave of nuclear proliferation in the heart of Europe would make the continent infinitely more dangerous and unstable. The risk of miscalculation or an accidental nuclear exchange would increase exponentially. Economically, the fallout would be devastating. A continent in a perpetual state of high alert is not a continent that thrives. Trade would suffer as tensions rise. The European Union project itself, already under strain, could begin to unravel as national security interests override collective economic goals. Nations would prioritize self-preservation over free trade and open borders. The dream of an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous Europe would die. So, when we talk about the U.S. leaving NATO, we're not just discussing a political move. We're talking about dismantling the entire security architecture that has prevented a major war in Europe for over 75 years. It would unleash a perfect storm of military insecurity, economic turmoil, and political fragmentation. The vacuum left by the United States wouldn't be filled by a united Europe, but by fear, rivalry, and opportunism. That, truly, is the nightmare scenario. It would be a stark reminder that peace and stability, once taken for granted, are incredibly fragile. Thanks for watching. If you found this exploration of a potential future thought-provoking, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. See you next time.